All right, we're almost ready to begin. Greg, if you could get your seat, thank you very much. Uh, yes, right there. Welcome, 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 everyone. This is the Lap of Luxury. I am so excited to be here tonight. I'm Cynthia Mohuden. I'm from the Rural Nevada Democratic Caucus. Let me introduce my counterparts. Chair Devin Doan is back there somewhere. I can't see him. There you are, Devin. He's back on his home turf. And Marie Bledsoe, our secretary, is back there. She's going to give you all some survey assignments after this is over. Wow, what an adventure we have been on, folks. This has been really fun, and this feels like such a cool finale. There's so many of you, there's food. I mean, this is fantastic. So for those of you that don't know, we started on April 15th in Winnemucca at the Winnemucca Library. We were in Battle Mountain, we were in Elko, Ely, Eureka, Urington, Fallon, and then earlier today we were at the Zephyr Cove Library, and now we are here. So it's been a really fun and exciting experience for all of us. I'm really thankful for all the candidates that have participated. I'm going to give out a 100% participation award to Matthew Fonkin and Mark Jolly. They were there for all of it. And not to leave Josh out, Josh also gets a 100% participation award, but he is no longer a candidate, so he's not on the panel, so he gets honorary 100% participation mention, honorable mention for Mark. Josh. What was that? Oh. One of our candidates is asking, can we get the music turned off? I hadn't noticed, but now that he's pointed it out, it's gonna, so does that solve it? Are we good? Okay. Okay, so before we get started, I want to ask, is there anyone here in the audience who is a registered Democrat and running for local office here in Carson City? I thought we had somebody. Oscar? Oh, the music's still there. Okay, come on up, Oscar. You have a minute if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I don't know if any of the Carson City folks can figure, oh, you killed the music, thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, look at this crowd. Thank you for being here. I'm Oscar Fuentes. I lived in Carson going on 35 years, so I pretty much know the community. I'm running for AD 40 and as a Democrat, and I'm going to flip that seat. I have worked for the state of Nevada for, again, 35 years. Currently, I work for Nevada Department of Transportation as a safety manager. And I tell you, I'm running on health care, affordability, housing, and we need to bring that to a lower cost for our families. So that's what I'm running for. Thank you.
I understand our local sheriff is in the house. Sheriff Furlong, would you like to say anything about yourself? No? Just feeling shy? Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Okay. All right. You do you. And before we get started, I also want to take this opportunity. I should have said this sooner. I'm just so in awe of this beautiful setup. I want to thank Chair Lewis Hardy of the Carson City Democrats and his sidekick, Vicki Preston, who made this magic happen. Like, wow, thank you so much. I mean, we at the RNDC have been doing this on basically a zero budget at free events. So again, this is luxurious. I'm still in awe. So thanks to both of you for everything you do to support Carson City Dems and the Rural Nevada Democratic Caucus. We appreciate you very much. So let's get started. Why are we here today? I'm so sorry, Josh. I do have a few folks that want to make some announcements. Thank you, Josh, for not letting me forget. Josh Hebert and Sam White would both like to make an announcement. I'll let Josh go first.
All right, hi, my name is Josh Hebert. I was one of the CD2 candidates, but some of you might have heard we formed a group called the People's Democrats where we had 5 of us join together, and we were going to advance one of us to go forward. And I'm not going to promote anybody here because it's not appropriate, but I was one of the people who elected to back out as part of that group. But I want to mention that What my campaign centered on was an amendment called the Ban Big Money Amendment to get big money out of politics. And I have talked to everybody on this stage about getting behind that so we could start that movement here. And I heard in the last one that some people had gotten an endorsement from a group called, well, they have the We the People Amendment. It's called Move to Amend. And instead of getting behind the Ban Big Money Amendment, they got behind an amendment that is poorly worded. I invite you all to go look it up. So I would encourage everybody here to get behind the Ban Big Money Amendment because it actually gets the job done, and it is something that can actually inspire people and that they understand because it's simple to understand. So please get behind the Ban Big Money Amendment. We can make that happen here if everybody gets behind it.
Thanks, Josh. You want to hand the mic to Sam? There he is. Okay.
Hi, my name is Samuel White. I was also a CD2 candidate, part of the People's Democrats. I have withdrawn from the candidacy, although I am technically still on the ballot, but I would ask you not to vote for me, but vote, if you want, you can talk to me later about who I would like to endorse. Again, it's not appropriate here. And then I would just also like to say thank you to the RNDC for the amount of amazing work that they've done. I've contributed a little bit to them to help fund them. I know a lot of it's out of their own pockets to make these things happen and get us out to the rural communities and allow them to see all of these amazing candidates. So again, just thank you guys so much, and I encourage all the candidates to contribute to the RNDC so they can keep doing this amazing work.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate that. Okay, let's get started while we're all here today. Sorry about forgetting the announcements, Josh. As you know, we have a large number of folks who took the leap and are running to be the Democratic nominee for Congressional District 2 from the great state of Nevada. This is a geographically very large district, and this is a special opportunity for us to have these candidates here and all together, and an opportunity to be here and see all of you. And I've said this a lot, and you're going to hear me say it again. I'm just so grateful for their participation and taking this seriously. This has really been just a phenomenal grassroots democracy experience, I think, for all of us, and I think it's been great for the candidates to hone their skills and get to know each other. The candidates have not been given the questions in advance. I will ask the questions, and each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer. Due to the number of candidates in our limited time, we will have 5 questions, which is more than our usual 4, but again, because we're in such a luxurious environment, we're not getting kicked out. We get an extra question, folks. They didn't know. There is an air horn built into the timer that the candidates have become all too accustomed to, but we want to warn the audience because I've seen a few people get freaked out by it. And at the end, finally, the candidates will have 2 minutes for a closing statement where they will get to share with you why they think they are the best candidate to take back this district and what's important about them for you to understand. We definitely want to see one of these folks up on this table win in November, and that's the primary goal of this whole tour, is to get them out when the voters. And we are going to turn this district blue for the first time because we've got a great group of folks up here. And I think the winner can and will do it, I hope. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our candidates. They're going to go in order. We've been going in order by first name, and then they've been moving down the line. So all the way to my left is Gamael Enriquez. He goes by Gami. Next to him, Greg Kidd, Kathy Durham, Mark Jolly, Matthew Funkin, Morgan Wadsworth, and Teresa Benitez Thompson. So when we sent out the invite a while back, there was a spot on the RSVP that not a lot of folks filled out, but you're all here, so that's what matters. But there were some folks who actually did ask a question. There was a spot, do you want to ask a question? So since 2 folks from Carson City basically asked a similar question, I'm going to put them together, but I want to give credit where credit is due. The topic of these questions are climate change. And the first question, and I'm going to put them together, but this counts as one question, folks. How will you address climate change? And that was Rachel DeLovio of Carson City. And then the other person asked, how can you help get clean energy projects funding to the states after Trump's halted it? I think I said that wrong, but How can you help get clean energy projects funding to the states after Trump's administration halted it? Sorry about that. And that was Marty McGarry here in Carson. Thanks, Marty. So with that being said, that's our first question. And Gami, you are up first. I'll bring you the mic.
Gami Enriquez here, folks. So what I will do, which is very unique and different from any other candidate, is I have a vision for a green Marshall Plan, inspired by the Marshall Plan after World War II. We set the stage for the European Union, 80 years of peace and prosperity on the continent. Green Marshall Plan is essentially the international equivalent of a Green New Deal. And this will fund my other big idea, which is a universal basic income, just like Alaska has had for the last 50 years. Now, why?
Gami, can you please stay over there, not
I'm
step
sorry.
in front of your fellow
Now,
candidates?
why? Thank you. Green Marshall Plan will eliminate the perpetual war challenge that we have, eliminate the undue influence of foreign lobbies, such as the Israeli lobby on our foreign policy, will help preserve our environment, will help create millions and millions of jobs both domestically and internationally, save thousands and thousands of dollars for Nevadans and across America as well. In addition to being able to help us continue to lead the world in the 21st century the way we were able to lead the world in the 20th century, in large part due to fossil fuel. So we must be able to harness and control and lead our generation of energy, which is renewable energy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gami. Go ahead, Greg.
Wow, it's a lot less lonely than 2 years ago. When I want to thank all these other candidates here. This is a very different race. I love the energy. 2 years ago, Nevada was leading the country in installing solar, and we got the legs kicked out from under that. We're the number one in solar. We're also number one with Reno being the city that has heated up the most in the last 30 years, 7 degrees. So we have the biggest opportunity, we have the biggest risk. We have no oil, we have no gas. We have an 1864 law, net proceeds, which means the mining industry in the state pays less than 1%. We have the example of Alaska, Norway, that put a gross tax on minerals coming out of the ground, oil. We have the lithium loop. We have potentially the most lithium of any place in the world, and yet we don't have a tax structure yet to put on top of that, to put aside a fund, a Nevada permanent fund, like Alaska and Norway have, to invest for the future, both in infrastructure and in additional clean energy. Our country right now has 1/5 the solar capacity of China. So we are sitting on not a gold mine, but a solar mine. We're sitting on lithium. We have not yet completed the lithium loop. We need to. We do the mining, we have the manufacturing, we have the recycling, but we don't have the processing. Republicans and Democrats, we need to get them all on board and end kind of the non-scientific windmill craziness that stopped Nevada from realizing our chance to lead not just the state, but the country and the world in what we do best. Solar, and we need to put some of that aside, not for current spending, but for the future. A Nevada permanent fund modeled like other states and countries, because our history is great, but we do need to plan for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Hi, I'm Kathy Durham. Climate change. We don't need to argue out whether or not it's real, we can see it before our eyes. I grew up originally in Salt Lake, in the shadow of the Park City Mountains, and we got some great skiing. I've also watched the Great Salt Lake start to dry up. The Great Salt Lake is why Utah claims they have the best snow on earth. But that lake is drying up now because we're not getting the precipitation, and we're losing the water. We saw it here in Reno. The ski season was very, very short. This is something that we need to tackle, and we need to do it in a smart way. And it's to our advantage. One, because we as a species, we require that we have an environment that we can live in. If we want to survive and thrive, we must protect the environment. It's also smart for us because innovation is what drives our economy. And so we need to look at innovative ways to come up with clean energy. We have to ask ourselves, who makes the money off of the energy that we have now? It's not us. The large corporations are getting the tax break for anything that they do to become energy efficient. They're the ones who get the tax break for putting solar panels on their business. You and I don't. When we get to Congress, we need to reverse that. We need to reward people who want to have energy efficient homes, want to put solar panels on, want to have the battery storage unit, so that we can all be benefiting from the investment that we make in our environment. Anytime that you do something innovative and come up with a new product, it improves the economy. We should be looking at this as a proactive, not a reactive measure that we do, because we've got to preserve our environment for our kids and generations. It says at the end of the preamble, to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. We owe it to our kids to get a handle on this.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Mark Jolly. So the question that we need to be asking most of these guys, most of us up here, is how? How are you going to do it? And when it comes to the environment, we don't have very many specific plans that I hear. One of the ones that I have, this is a specific plan, is rail. And I know a lot of you guys are tired of hearing about it. I don't care. We need a national rail program. We need to invest in our economy. And the thing that's cool about this is that I can sell it to Republicans. I have been going into these spaces and I have been telling them, guys, we need to bring manufacturing back. We need to have jobs. We need to have infrastructure. Could you imagine Amazon working without the national highway system? When was the last time we had a national project? The thing that's cool about rail is that when I get what I want, and we can have light rail in every city, high-speed rail and freight rail, we are reducing the number of cars. How else are you going to do that? What other method do you have? We have a car-dependent culture. So I want a national rail project because I can sell it. The other thing is, how many of you know what a circular economy is? Nobody, really, okay. You do, awesome. So circular economy is when you have a plan for the stuff that you build, the stuff that you make, all the way to when it's done. Right now, we have a take, make, waste economy. We don't think about the things that we are throwing away. We have single-use plastics. We have all sorts of things that we are using that we could do this in a different manner. When was the last time you guys went out and bought asbestos? How about lead-based paints? Is that something you guys buy on a daily basis? We can make things just unavailable. Plastics are okay for some things, but honestly, we need to be reducing this because at the end of the day, what they are going to be is microplastics. Every single one of us in this room has them in our body right now. They are in the Arctic ice. They are everywhere. We can change this by making structural changes to the way we base our economy. And I need people talking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
Climate change is real, and what they taught me in school growing up back in the 80s and 90s is happening today. Our forests are burning, our air is getting worse, our water is filthy all across the nation. It is affecting communities in the hardest places to live, and we live in the driest state in the country, and we have billionaires bringing in AI data centers, sucking up our water, driving up our energy costs, and getting away with it. We must call for a moratorium on AI data centers and make sure that we have the proper environmental impact studies done, and so many more things to regulate AI, and so much more that I could go into. When it comes to climate, we also know, like, this is one of the fastest warming places in the country. And because of that, it's bad development practices. And I believe we need to regulate and have a proportional amount of developments required to be LEED certified. This means that they are environmentally friendly built projects. That means that no more rock in our places with the trees that are cooking the roots and killing those trees. We need to fund our Forest Service so that they can mitigate wildfire. And not just mitigate the wildfire, but harden our communities for it, and then restore the areas after a wildfire has come through. We need to be replanting those trees and making sure that invasive species are mitigated. When it comes to clean energy, we need to make sure we get that funding back and appropriately back to those clean energy projects, and that is why I have a Open the Grid Interconnectivity Act that I'd like to bring forward that has already been written, ready to be brought to the legal team. And that is because we have a lot of clean energy projects out there that have already been built, and they're sitting there not connected to the grid because they're speculative green energy projects taking up the space. So we need to pass that act so that we can get those folks connected to the grid and get fossil fuels out of our economy.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, it's a two-parter about climate change. First part was, how will you address climate change? And that was from Rachel Delovio. And the second part was, how can you help get clean energy projects funding to the states after Trump administration halted it? That was from Marnie McGarry.
Yes, so I would like to declare climate change as a national emergency if I was elected, so that we can really focus on that and all those issues. I also do support the Green New Deal I believe it failed to pass the Senate in 2019, and that was a huge climate change bill that would have done so much for us. So we really need to bring that back and try to get that passed when we take back the House and the Senate this November. But beyond that, if you really want to have power to address climate change in the environment in Congress, you need to be on the Natural Resources Committee. Luckily, our district is almost always given that position in Congress because of how much public lands we have, and CD2 being one of the biggest districts. So I would like to be on the Natural Resources Committee so that I could directly deal with all bills that have to do with public lands, natural resources, conservationism, environmental, climate change, and all of that. We also really need to be bringing back a lot of the things that the Trump administration has been cutting since he was in office in 2016. He's severely weakened the EPA, taken us out of a lot of international climate agreements, and we really, once we take back the House and the Senate, we need to roll those back and go back into those international agreements and bring back the funding for the projects here in Nevada and for the projects here across the country for solar, geothermal. We also have a lot of geothermal energy here in Nevada that we are not really using to its fullest potential. So those are a couple of things that I would like to do and how I would address the climate change. But beyond that, I also am working on something called the Western Water Compact. I really want to create a coalition with a lot of our other Western Democratic Congress people, like Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, so that we can get a hold of the public lands issues, the mining issues, the water issues, and the drought issues that we are facing as Western states, so that we can get the coalition, get the power, and get the votes to actually pass legislation.
Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
I'll stand just to make sure everyone can see me in the back. I pretend to be 5'4", but really I'm 5'3". I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson. So let's start off with, I've commuted into Carson City for work for one reason or another for the past 15 years. Most recently, until I stepped down from my job, I was commuting every day from West Reno into here. So 66 miles round trip. And I'll tell you the 3 scariest instances that I've had when I've been in Carson City, and raise your hand if you remember them. Waterfall fire. I was an intern at the old cottages. Now they're torn down, looking out at Sea Hill at lunchtime, seeing the first black plume of smoke going up, going, oh my gosh. And then I remember by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was like, get out as fast as you can, right? Davis Creek fire more recently, right? For those of us who worked for the state, one day we didn't have to go to work because of the fire, but then the following days we had to go to work through, even though there was the fire, so driving through Washoe Valley with the helicopters going over the head. And then the controlled burn in Washoe Valley that spread to the big fire. Yep, once again, driving through fire through Washoe Valley. So I want to start with the fire, and I'm going to talk a little bit about floods. What we need is we rely on our partner agencies and multi-agency, multi-level response, and even other states to help us when it comes to fire. Those of us know one good fire in Nevada could potentially bankrupt us. The Doge, Elon Musk and his Doge bros cut out vital funding that went to FEMA and other programs to support us and our ability to fight fire fuels and also to help us respond to fires. They did the same thing with floods, because the other set of scary examples I have is when it floods here in northern Nevada and all the floods that I've lived through. So first of all, we know that the threat is real, but we have been stripped by this administration of our ability to respond at the local level and the state level because of a loss of our federal dollars not coming back to us through important programs like the BRIC program. Secondly, on the energy and looking green, we were on a good path with the investments made in the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act. We had tens of $millions in solar for all slated to come from Nevada. Solar for all was going to help low-income communities access that solar that we need. This administration put a big red line through that. We need to get all of that back.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, again, our private venues were so tiny we could practically see each other. Next question. Social Security and Medicare. How can we save Social Security and Medicare? And this question was submitted to us by Carolyn Worrell. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, here in Carson City.
Gami Enriquez here, folks. We must have political courage to have universal economic policies for all. After World War II, we helped create the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. Political rights for all, universal for all, economic rights for all as well. And the result is the European Union has the longest life expectancy, highest quality of life. Why are we not pursuing universal economic policies for all here in the United States, which includes and must include universal health care? The reason why Social Security has been so popular for decades is because it's a universal program. Everybody gets it. There's virtually no opposition. This is why my platform speaks about universal economic policies for all, from cradle to grave, with a universal basic income paid for through that Green Marshall Plan. That is how we preserve, reform, and expand Social Security, universal health care, and other programs from cradle to grave, as I've been advocating for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gami. Great.
Okay, I'm not going to mince words here. Social Security. I'm going to talk a little more quickly. When it got started, people didn't live very long, and there were a lot more young people. Social Security is not going to work without more young people and more immigrants. Immigrants are who are paying into Social Security. They put a lot more in than they take out. We need to get that ratio back with enough younger people paying for older people. There's no way to do it if the pyramid is inverted. Have to do it. Number two, Social Security currently has a cap. You get past a certain number, your Social Security contributions stop. Sorry, rich people, we can't do that. You got to let Social Security pay in, Keep going beyond the cap. We need that to make the system sustainable. Those are the things that will make Social Security work all the way out for our kids. If we don't do that, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're not serious. Okay, let's switch over to Medicaid or Medicare. We got Obamacare. It was great for access. It did nothing to control costs. It's a half solution. It's much better than no solution or some presidential candidate who said he had a concept of a plan, okay? Concept of a plan isn't going to cut it. What will cut it is the healthcare system should not, in this country or in any country, include payments, i.e. insurance companies. We spend 18% of our GDP. No other country spends even 12, and we get worse outcomes. We must stop that. Healthcare and money should not be in the same sentence. And look, I'm a private sector guy, but this is the wrong industry, just as public education. What that means is doctors, nurses are hired on salary, and you just go for services. You don't pay. There are no claims. Nobody is going in for that extra colonoscopy. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Kathy.
Yeah, Social Security, you have to get rid of the cap on that. The money is there. The problem is the money is tied up with the billionaires who are getting all of the tax credits, and we are not. Okay? We need to restore the cuts that were made to Medicare and Medicaid. Okay? We might have gotten a little bit of extra money on our tax refund this year, but it's all gone into our tank. Okay? Our tax credits are temporary. The no tax on tips expires in 2029. Okay? But the tax credits for the billionaires, which they get to hoard this money, which is what we need to fund our programs, they're permanent. We need to undo those, and we need to raise the taxes on the billionaires. That's the only, you got to bring in the revenue. When we look at Medicare, until this last meeting, I was a Medicare person for all, and I still lean that way. I wouldn't want Medicare under the current administration, that's for sure. But we need to break up the monopoly that has taken over our healthcare industry. We have 3 insurance companies that have basically vertically integrated the healthcare system. That means the insurance company that you pay your premium to, they own the doctor, they own the hospital, they own the equipment in the hospital, they own the pharmacist, they own the pharmacy, they own the pharmaceutical company. Every time you pay a bill, you're paying it to the same insurance company. They have created a monopoly. We need to first start with breaking that up. My own son had to drop his health care insurance for his 3 kids because it tripled. The healthcare industry is making profit off of us. Any for-profit business relies on return customers. That's why we're sick all the time, because it keeps them rich. If you make us healthy, they go broke. So we need to go towards a Medicare for all. We need to get corporate people paying their fair share in taxes and give the money to us, because we'll feed the economy.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark.
So this is a first, actually. This is one of the rare occasions where I'm going to just go ahead and say, Greg, yep, you're 100% right on Social Security. Good for you. I agree with him that we need to remove the caps on that. There's no other way of doing that. We also need to be changing the way that we have the tax code right now. Businesses, large corporations are given almost a free ride as far as taxes go. I know this because I have a small business and we are not. But let's move on to Medicare for all. So right now, let's see, 2 years ago, I have a family of 4, and we were paying around $3,000 something a year, and now we're paying over $9,000 a year. And our insurance hasn't changed. Like, I don't know about you, like, I'm not getting different medical treatment. I'm not getting gold-plated, anything when I go to the doctor. But here's the thing. I actually have health care insurance through my wife. But so much of America doesn't get it at all. They are kept out of the system. They got to pay for it. They got to pay for Medicare. They got to pay for Medicaid on every single paycheck. but they don't get it unless they have a job at a corporation that can give them health insurance. And what does that feel like? Does that feel like if you lose that job, maybe it's a threat? Does that feel like maybe a hostage situation is what I would call it? We shouldn't have that. We should have a situation where, guys, this is one of the basics of living. We don't hold people's health care hostage. We don't hold their retirement hostage. We can be doing this for everybody. It's actually not that hard, but right now we have a system that is absolutely designed for the wealthy and is extracting from us. This is a choice. We can change this. We need to be on, and frankly, I am so glad because there's hardly any daylight between any of us on this one topic. This is the one thing where I can say all of us agree. The healthcare for all is really the only way. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
In order to fix the Social Security and Medicare situation in this country, we first not only have to flip this seat, but we have to take back the House and the Senate in 2026. We have to have a fighter go to Congress who's going to stand up to the billionaires, because did you know Elon Musk stops paying into Social Security and Medicare 26 seconds into the new year? That's wrong. And that is why we need fighters who are willing to go stand up to billionaires in Congress and lift the cap and make them pay their fair share. This is how my generation will be able to then think and believe that we'll actually have access to Social Security when we retire someday. That is something that my generation does not expect to get, just like we have already accepted that we'll never be able to buy a home. And that is a problem in this nation for so many of my generation and younger. When it comes to Medicare, we will be able to fund a Medicare for all system because we will be taxing the billionaires their fair share. We could tax them at 70% and they would still be billionaires. They would not miss the money. They wouldn't even notice it's gone because they've got so much. This is how we fund all of the things that we need to better our communities and better our lives. Medicare for all is the system. And in the meantime, while we're working to get there, because it's not going to be a flip of the switch, we need to be serious about that too. We need to lower the age of which you can sign into Medicare to 60 years of age. And we need to raise the age from 26 to 30 for those folks, because those are the two gaps of generations that are being left out of the healthcare system right now. We must get them back into the system and taken care of in the meantime while we're working our asses off in Congress to get everybody health care so they don't have to worry about bankruptcy for us for any type of operation like me having an emergency appendectomy in November, and if I hadn't had health care through my employer would have had to file bankruptcy because it was $41,000.
Thank you, Matt. Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, Mark kind of said it. We all very much agree on this topic. I think it's one of the topics we most agree on as a group. So lift the cap off of Social Security. I do support Medicare for all. At the last meeting we had, there was a doctor there who talked about the VA being actually better than Medicare, and that was something that I do want to look into. I have a background in healthcare. I've been a volunteer in hospice. I've been a medical assistant. I was a pre-medical student for 3 years, did a lot of shadowing. I've also watched the healthcare system from the other side with my grandfather. And with myself, I'm sure you guys notice I have braces. I have to get double jaw surgery because I have a degenerative joint issue. Well, there's only 2 surgeons in Nevada that can do it, and they don't take any ACA, HMO, or Medicaid because they don't have to, right? And I'm not working. I'm a full-time student, so that's a huge issue, and I actually don't have insurance right now. I had to get off of it because the ACA tax credit expired. So we need to get a handle on our healthcare system, and more than just getting a handle on our healthcare system is the process of which we have how we get our doctors and nurses as well needs to be reformed. Again, being a pre-medical student and really seeing that is we have not increased the amount of residency spots, which is so you go to medical school and then you become a resident doctor before you become an attending. We have not increased our residency spots since, I believe, the 1980s. And Medicare controls that. So when we cut Medicare funding, we're not going to be able to pay for more seats for more doctors to get through medical school and to become attendings. And that's going to feed into our physician shortage as well, that we especially have here in Nevada. So healthcare is also one of the main reasons why I got into this race, because I saw how broken it was, and I saw Mark Amadei vote vote for the Medicare and Medicaid cuts with the big beautiful bill, right? So that was kind of a last straw for me. And beyond that, we need to close the tax loopholes for the wealthy, and we need to tax the wealthy. I do support Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna's tax the billionaires bill that did not pass recently, but I do support that because we used to have 17 tax brackets, and we have about 5 or 7 now. So trickle-down economics it's not working, and we need to go back to taxing the wealthy.
Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
Thank you so much. So we have to start with, I think, is the most fundamental thing, which is that we have to hold the line on Social Security and Medicare, because I think a lot of the conversations that are happening out there right now on the other side of the aisle with the other party about how it's so expensive, it's going broke, and just making everyone believe that you need these draconian changes to Social Security in order to make it last, and that's not true. We have solvent systems that work. We hear the same thing about, for example, the PERS program in Nevada, right? And then all these other type of arguments that come out for why we should switch it to a private market. So we have to stay away from all of that. We know that those threats are very much real. I worked for over just about 12 years, 13 years in the healthcare setting, both outpatient and inpatient, so in a hospital setting. So I'd spend lots of times with patients talking about what was going to be covered or not covered, working very hard to try to get pre-authorizations, and being very frustrated that we were getting denials. So I became the queen of resubmit, resubmit, resubmit. You want to fight a paper bureaucracy? Let's go for it, toe to toe. I saved the facts that you said you thought you lost, so here's the confirmation, backdate it. Nothing was more frustrating, because the people I worked with were very much end of life. Nothing was more frustrating than seeing them worry about what things might cost, or were things going to be covered. It's not what you should be worried about at all when you walk into a healthcare setting. You should be worried about your wellness and getting better. In terms of the rules, I worked in 5 rural counties. I had patient caseloads out there, and the biggest issue was always access, brick and mortar buildings, access to specialties, and just the amount of hours people would have to drive to come back into the regional centers or the VA in Reno to get their care. So nothing's going to be a real promise about getting things better unless we can talk about infrastructure as well. So why do these 2 issues matter most in Nevada? Why do you want a congressperson that's absolutely going to lean into protecting your Social Security and your Medicare? It's because Nevada, we have one of the fastest growing senior populations in the nation. One of the fastest growing senior populations. So this is an issue where if someone isn't leaning in, don't vote for them, because...
And there it is, folks. Thank you, Teresa. You guys are all like, yeah, whatever. Okay, this is going to be a long question, but I'm the moderator, so I can take as long as I want. This is an issue that's been bothering me personally, and I really struggle to figure out how to phrase the question, but here we go. The topic is white supremacy in the Trump administration. The relationship between white supremacy and the Trump administration has been described by civil rights organizations as a period where far-right extremist ideologies have been mainstreamed and policies have been implemented that disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Examples include inflammatory speech, calling some immigrants criminals or rapists, referring to certain nations as shithole countries, apologize to the children in the room, and stating that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country, aligns with white nationalist narratives. Support for extremists. In 2025, the administration pardoned members of extremist groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who were involved in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Immigration policies. The The administration's immigration policies are driven by white nationalisms. They aim to restrict immigration from non-white countries. Dismantling DEI efforts. The administration has moved to dismantle federal diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and programs aiming to repeal protections designed to prevent systemic discrimination. And the most recent example, and this one really bothers me a lot, the indictment of the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a nonprofit law firm whose mission is actually to target hate groups. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has gutted Voting Rights Act this week. Ugh, I'm exhausted just reading this. So my question for you candidates is, what, if elected to Congress, will you do to protect the civil rights of ethnic and religious minorities in the United States? And Gammy, you're up.
Excellent question, thank you. As egregious as all of these examples are, and they are very egregious, and they do hit home particularly hard for me as a Latino, and the fact that my wife is African American. We're having a baby soon in June. Thank you. These are all a symptom of the economic inequality that we've been facing in this country for decades. A book was written about 20 years ago, Strangers in Their Own Land, about how folks on the other side do feel at times like strangers in their own land. And unfortunately, this administration has taken advantage of this, poured lots of gasoline, while they transfer trillions and trillions of dollars from the 99% of us to the 1%. This is why, once again, I am the only candidate talking about bold, progressive, universal economic policies for all. In the 1950s, it was acceptable, and prior, to say the N-word. Then in the 60s and 70s, it no longer was. It was about state rights and busing. And Lee Atwater, Nixon's strategist, figured out, okay, by the 80s, we're going to call it fiscal responsibility. And that culminated in Project 2025. We cannot give these folks more ammunition. Universality is the way forward.
Thank you, Gami. Greg.
So there was a time not that long ago in our nation's history where we had liberal Republicans and we had conservative Democrats, including quite racist conservative Democrats. And in the 1960s, something happened. Lyndon Johnson became president. In case you don't know Lyndon Johnson's background, he wasn't exactly Mr. Civil Rights, okay? But he was contemporaneous with Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King did not talk about black rights, he talked about civil rights. And somewhere there became a connection between blacks, whites, all sorts of other people, and the civil rights movement came, and the United States changed. That's when we passed that Voting Rights Act. It was an amazing time. And I want to get back to a time when left and right, Republican and Democrat, it isn't just filtered, like there's a racism filter. This party, this side, more, that. Civil rights was something that worked across the party lines. Democrats have had a struggle in the last election. We got played. The identity politics in the Democratic Party made us vulnerable. Trump peeled off large segments that have historically voted Democratic. It hurt. It cost us the election. We want those populations back, not because of each of their identity groups, but because we recommit to the type of civil rights that Martin Luther King taught us about. And I want to be part of that process of returning civility to this country so there is no longer this division. I will work across the aisle where there are tremendous problems. I was in Dayton 2 days ago debating what type of law? Sharia law is doing in America. Okay, that's how far off we've gone. We've got to get back to what Martin Luther King taught us. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Kathy.
To answer the question, what will I do? I will uphold the Constitution, and we need to restore the Civil Rights Act fully. That's what we need to do. The playbook is there for us to follow if we'll just do it. But what is the bigger picture about what's going on and why is this happening? You know, I teach history, and people say, oh, we learn history so we don't repeat the past. And if that's true, we are the slowest learners on the planet. So the playbook is to follow the Constitution, restore the Civil Rights Act. But what we really need to do is invest heavily in civics education in our schools. We need to bring back civics so that our kids understand the Constitution. We need to restore teaching true history, hard history about this country. We all make mistakes, but the lesson is, now that we know better, let us do better. Okay, so we need to have these hard conversations in the classroom about how we got here. I just finished a unit on the Holocaust with my students, and we looked at the rise of Nazism. And they watched a video, and I said, pay attention to the setting in the country. What did he say? How did he say it? What did he do? How did he do it? When the kids put the stuff up on the board, they were like, this is happening now. Then we looked at how did the Holocaust unfold, and we started with first the Nuremberg laws. Divide them, us versus them. The less than, the superior. Okay? Then we had Kristallnacht. We can arrest, detain, and deport. And my kids, who are 75% Hispanic population, looked at each other and went, that's what they're doing now. Okay? Then we expand our borders. Oh, we'll take Cuba, we'll take Greenland, we'll take this one, Lebensraum. We will have living space. And when we do, we go in and we take those people too. And that's when they brought in the Einsatzgruppen and just started killing them. But then they said, you know, this isn't effective enough, so we'll go with extermination camps. That's how it happens. We have to enforce, bring back history and civics so our students understand the warning signs.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark.
You know, I used to be an archaeologist, and I'm so glad that she mentioned that she's a history teacher. We see very eye to eye on these things. And, you know, people used to ask me, what is the point of this? What is the point of all the history stuff? And I never really had a good answer for that until one day I figured out that's us. Your history is the story of us. It tells you who you are. It tells you who I am, who your enemy is. It tells you where you are and how you got there. It's the whole story of your people. And the Trump administration is quite literally erasing it from monuments. They are going around and taking LGBTQ people away from signs. They are taking down embarrassing history. But that's the thing. Guys, this is our history. Not all of it's clean. When they go after critical race theory, when they go after the 1619 project, and they try and replace it with the 1776 report, those kind of things. They're trying to rewrite our past. That is taking away from us everything we've learned, everything we've gained, and what our narratives are. So all right, the question is, what can I do as a congressperson? Well, the power of the purse. ICE, no way. I'm not signing anything for ICE. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's everybody's going to agree with that up here. I'm just going to say that. So ICE, no more. We need to be making sure that education is front and foremost. We need to be providing as much financial support for education across the country, and that education does need to be truthful. Let's see. Sorry. We need to be, labeling certain organizations as terrorist organizations. The Proud Boys are a terrorist organization. They get by on terror. If you don't label them as such, they don't get treated as such. So we need to be clear about that, and we need to make sure that the people who are committing these violent actions and doing so for race-based reasons are held to account and are labeled correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
This, man, I tell you what, this is a hard question. I know. And it's because all of our communities are under attack. And it's not like it's new. This is something that's been happening for quite some time. And when Trump ran in 2015 and won in 2016, it emboldened his base. It emboldened the communities across this nation that, I don't know, they came out from underneath their rocks and started going, oh, it's okay for me to say the things that are not good for us to be saying and doing. And now he's gotten through a second term, and he's made sure he's learned his lessons from his first term and got his loyalists into office with him, appointed into their secretarial seats, and they are dismantling this nation. They are attacking our communities left and right. We must dismantle and defund ICE first and foremost. That is a huge issue. We do not need to be militarizing our communities, killing American citizens and immigrants in this nation, and demonizing them. We need to have protections for our LGBTQ members. Right now, the Supreme Court justices just passed to make sure that conversion therapy is legalized in this nation. That is an abomination, like they told me I was growing up and going to evangelical churches. That is an abomination by treating human beings this way. We need someone in Congress who's going to protect our civil liberties and protect our First Amendment rights to assemble and fight back. And you know what? When it's unconstitutional, like many other actions have been, let's step up in our office that we have the power to impeach, convict, and remove them from their offices. And anyone who has violated the law, they should be prosecuted and put in prison.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
So what I would do is, we have a very good example here in Nevada, the ERA, that we did put into our state constitution, the Equal Rights Act. We need to pass similar legislation at the federal level. We need to expand on civil rights protections for all of our groups of people. We need to roll back all of the DEI cuts that DOJ has done. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, veterans are under DEI, so a lot of veteran things have been cut and under attack as well. But let's talk about why this is happening. It goes back to the Reconstruction era after the Civil War. So we kind of, after the Civil War ended, we kind of just let the South be. We did not really imprison, prosecute, or execute any of the Confederate top officials. And look, now years and years later, the South, they still have all their Confederate flags. They still teach a different version of the Civil War in their schools. So we need to invest in civics education, absolutely. But we also need to look, and goes into an education problem, and it goes into we did not take a strong enough stance after the Civil War against what happened. And when we look at Germany, what did they do? They had the Nuremberg trials. They took a hard stance. They prosecuted and imprisoned multiple people who were involved in Nazi Germany. They banned all of the Nazi symbols and speeches and hate speech and all of that. We didn't, like I said, we didn't do that for the Civil War, so it's been festering for years and years and years in the South with Christian nationalism, racism, and extremism, and it's spurred on by the lack of education, the lack of civics education in our schools, and the fact that, again, those states are teaching an alternate version of history. So those are why this is happening, and at the federal level, we need to, like I said, strengthen civil rights through legislation, and we need to roll back a lot of these DEI cuts, and we need to, when this is over, and it will be over, we need to do our own American Nuremberg trials, and we need to make sure that all of these top officials, not just Trump, all of them are impeached, convicted, and removed. We need to take a hard stance against white supremacy, labeling them as terrorist groups, and all of that. And I'm about to be out of time, and I don't want that to go off.
Other way. Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
So I think the most dangerous thing about this administration is that they have tried to turn neighbors against neighbors, that they've tried to convince us that there's an us and that there's a them, and we need to destroy them at all costs, and we need to push forward the agenda of us at all costs. Weaponizing xenophobia and carrying that through policy, where now we see law and policy that gives us permission to hate. We don't see protections for our vulnerable communities. We had been making such headway in terms of re-engaging traditionally disenfranchised communities. And what makes my heart warm, because I have to tell you, it's really easy to feel kind of defeated. Sometimes it's really easy to feel personally attacked when we turn on the news in any given moment. But once again, I come back to our Nevada spirit, because I know our communities can be strong and resilient, and I know that we are a state that proves that we come together more often than not. We were the state that had, most recently in the last decade, I was able to watch our first African-American speaker get gavelled in to power at the Nevada legislature, at the same time as we had African-American male serving as the Senate Majority Leader on the Senate side, while we had a Latino governor. And we actually were advised not to talk about that too much, because we didn't want people coming in from other places and causing us problems. The only time I had a death threat when I was a legislator that was so serious that we had to send law enforcement out to knock doors was I spoke one phrase of Spanish on the legislature floor. And the death threats were real, because they don't just threaten to kill you. They named my husband, they named all my children, and they named my dogs. But at the same time, my colleagues rallied around me, Democrats and Republicans. Like, we have to believe that we know that if we spend interpersonal time with each other and work with each other, that we can overcome xenophobia and fear. I want to thank Cynthia for mentioning so much the absolutely illegal, stupid, and silly. I'm not going to say silly because it's got a lot behind it, but the attack on the Southern Poverty Law Center, because they've been doing anti-racism work for years. And if you read the indictment,
Thank you, Teresa.
bad. It's all bad. We can do better.
I appreciate that. Okay, 9 stops, 4 questions a stop. I pride myself on not having repeated anything, but folks, this is a repeat. And the reason it's a repeat is because I asked this question in Eureka, and there were only 5 folks that were able to make it that day, and 2 of them are no longer on the panel because they are the 2 that have suspended their candidacy. So this is new for most of our panel, but it is a repeat. So I wanted to have full disclosure on that one. This is a fun topic. I call it the patriarchy. Access to abortion care and the Epstein files. So this is a 2-parter, so this will be 2 separate questions. Again, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Efforts to limit women's control over if and when they become mothers, from the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade to Project 2025 aiming to restrict birth control. Would you advocate for codifying the protections from Roe v. Wade? Do you have any thoughts on the fact that in 2024, when the Democrats controlled the White House and Congress, they did not codify Roe, i.e. passed the Women's Health Protection Act? And I'm going to throw something new in there just for fun. Also share your thoughts on why we still don't have the Equal Rights Amendment, which has been hanging around like almost as long as I've been alive, and I'm not that young, folks. So, I know. You'll get your turn, Teresa. And Cammie, you're up. Teresa's hot for this one, I can tell. She wasn't there in Eureka.
Gami Enriquez here, folks. Very simple. We have very old thinking in this country. White supremacist, male, European-centric, ethnocentric, that loves to maintain that hierarchy, right? It's just another form of divide and conquer of all of us. This is why I very much support a woman's right to choose. In fact, 2 years ago, I played a critical role in dropping off over 200,000 signatures to codify that in our state's constitution in Washoe County. And this is why I also support and advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, and why we also need to move forward the equal rights proposal as well, because we need to further our democracy. And I believe that the best way to do that is through a set of universal economic policies for all. The 1% like to divide us along identity. We must come together along economic justice. Last thing I would say is, once again, that patriarchy, it's a battle over, they are trying to turn women into reproductive slaves, is what they're trying to do. It's a battle over increasing our demographics, but not having all of us pay for that through the social contract.
Thank you, Gami. Greg.
So when I came through the educational system, there was this poem when I was thinking of going to law school. I did not go to law school. I almost went to law school. And it's a simple poem. The poem is from Yale Law School, and the poem goes like this: "The law is the true embodiment of everything that's excellent. It has no fault or law, and I, my Lord, embody the law." It just means that the arrogance of the law is to believe that there's some sort of intellectually pure right answer. The law is politics. To make good law and good social policy, we need to win in the political system. We ended up with this terrible situation with Roe because we lost control of the Supreme Court, 3 bad appointments, we lost the Senate. I'm happy that Jackie made it back in, otherwise it'd be 46 to 54. We need to win the Senate back. If we're gonna get Roe versus Wade back, if we're gonna get good laws in the first place, we gotta win the politics. We can talk about the morality, the intellectual side. This is a dogfight. This election coming up, open seat. We get to make a difference. We made a difference at the Senate level last time with Jackie. We need to make a difference this time. We need to defend Roe versus Wade. And look, on the ERA, it's a dogfight. They ran out the clock on us. We need those votes. We need 60 votes in the Senate. We need to get our House and Senate back. This time around is nothing like 2024. People are riled up. I was in Dayton 2 days ago. There's a bigger group there of Republicans. Guys, we can win this one. We really can. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Kathy.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was one of my sheroes. I still remember where I was when I heard that she had passed. I was driving in my car home from Elko, and I looked up to her for so many reasons. Her fight, her brilliance. She was so articulate. I would love to be able to speak as well as she spoke. She was amazing. Back to the question. We need to codify Roe v. Wade. It needs to be in there, and I'm glad you brought up the ERA, because that does too. The reason we need to codify is because whether it's a woman or a man, all of us deserve to have our health care decisions determined by ourselves and our health care provider, not a politician. Doctors are trained to know what is best, and we have freedom to be able to decide for ourselves what is in our best health interest. That should not be done by Washington, D.C. You know, it's an interesting thing. Thank you. It's an interesting thing, because it goes back to the health care again, is they are so eager to make us all bear the baby. But we are not going to feed that baby. And we are going to make sure that you go broke trying to get your prenatal care. You know, like, what is the end game here? And so we need to enshrine the woman's right to choose. We need to enshrine the ERA. And by the way, the ERA, when they were marching for their rights in the 1970s, the Powell Memorandum and the Trilateral Commission labeled people that were marching in the streets, including women, the special interest, and that they were a threat to the national interest. And you knew who the national interest was? The corporations. And they said, we need to reduce democracy. Epstein file. We have a two-tier system of justice in this country, and we need to
Epstein's the next question.
Oh, you said it in, okay,
sorry.
next time, I'll save it.
I did mention it, but yeah, you're good.
Well, that's going to
On
change.
We all get confused. Yeah, I did. You're good. Stay tuned. Go ahead, Mark.
So we got this question. We actually got 2 questions in Eureka. We're about the patriarchy, and unfortunately, none of our female candidates were able to make it. So it was a room full of dudes talking about the patriarchy. All right, guys, let's make these answers good. So, like, yes, I want to codify abortion laws. Frankly, it is repugnant that we haven't done that. People should have rights over their own body. Roe v. Wade was based on viability, and the laws as they are written now are clearly written by a bunch of guys who health education ended in the 9th grade. They didn't talk to any gynecologists or anyone else before they wrote them, and at the end of the day, they're doing harm. There are people out there, children out there, who are being harmed by these laws. And that's the best way in. Like I said, I've been going to a lot of uncomfortable spaces for Democrats, and I've been talking to them about these things. Stop using buzzwords. Don't use the buzzwords. Talk to them about real people, real 12-year-olds who have to be driven across state lines. Talk to them about their daughters who don't want to be slaves to a guy that might not be treating them well. Talk to them about all of the different things that are actually harming real people, real constituents in their communities, and you will see some movement. The moment you get into the weeds with all the terminology that they're used to, they start digging their trenches. You won't get any movement on them. But frankly, if we were to go to Congress and we were to be able to explain these things in a real way about real harm that is happening right now, I think we can win this. They had some movement before, but there are enough people who have seen the results of it, women on the other side who have seen the results of it, that they're willing to move. Now's the time.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
Could you repeat the questions?
Yes. Just the question, not the whole thing. Okay. Would you advocate for codifying the protections from Roe versus Wade? Do you have any thoughts on the fact that in 2024, when the Democrats controlled the White House and Congress, they did not codify Roe, i.e. pass the Women's Health Protection Act, and that we still have not passed the Equal Rights Amendment?
Thank you for that question, or multiple questions. First and foremost, yes, I believe in a person's right to choose their bodily autonomy. And I say a person's because I want to make sure that we're including the LGBTQ members in that process. Now, would I be wanting to codify Roe? Absolutely. And wonder why we didn't do it sooner. Should have been done a long time ago, and I believe one of the reasons that it wasn't done during that administration's time in office was because we have folks sitting in Congress who are comfortable and cozy in their seats. And they have gotten so comfortable that they forgot what we need to be fighting for and protecting folks' rights instead of going out and campaigning for more money and more money and more money. This is why I am proud to be endorsed by Take Back Congress, because one of the 5-point parts of that pledge is term limits in Congress. If we had term limits in Congress, That would make sure that we have new energy, new voices, and new faces going into Congress, not getting comfortable because you have a limited amount of time to get the work done while you're there. And if we had that happening, we would pass Roe v. Wade and we codify it. We would pass the ERA and make sure that that's codified to protect the folks that we answered the question to in the previous question. And so much more. This is how we get rid of that entrenchment of power and a mindset that we'll just wait out our turn, or while we're in power, we'll sit here and we'll do other things instead of the things that have been waiting in line to get passed for a very long time.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
Yes, I would support codifying Roe v. Wade and the Equal Rights Act. But beyond that, yeah, absolutely. The Democrats failed when they had the House. In between these two Trump terms, they absolutely failed. And, you know, when you really look into it, both sides of the aisle that are in Congress right now, they take money from the same people. Their kids go to the same schools. They hang out at the same places on the weekends. They're all very comfortable with each other. They've all been there for a very long time. There is no new energy. There is no urgency. And I used to support term limits. I don't so much now because I believe that if we do massive campaign finance reform and get big money out of politics, we can just make it easier for people to get challenged and voted out of office and replaced if they're not performing well. So that's how I feel about that. And we're at a point in this country where we need to do massive reform and massive change. That includes massive things like the Equal Rights Amendment and all of that, and that includes getting big money out of politics, and we're not gonna be able to do a lot of things until we can do that and until we can pass massive campaign finance reform, and that kind of looks like spending caps, more transparency, matching donations, having like some public financing and matching donations like they do in New York, which really helped Zohran Mamdani in New York, helped him get up and get elected and get the money to run his campaign. So we need to be focusing on those things, and we absolutely need to be getting new blood into Congress, and we need real energy and real urgency so that these things don't happen again. Because exactly, they're just too comfortable in Congress. Some of these people have been in there since almost my age, and now look at Mitch McConnell. He can't even walk or talk, and he's still in the Senate. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's very difficult to get these incumbents out of office because of the massive amount of money that they have and that they are getting from corporations. So we need to address the money issue in Congress, in the federal government, immediately.
Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
So I didn't get to say, I'm gonna yield time to over-appropriate time to myself from the last question, because on the white supremacy question I didn't get to quite say what I wanted to finish saying on like pardons, immigration, inflammatory speech, the fight against the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's just that there is hope, and that I think that we have actually done a lot of work in Nevada to show that great communities and great leadership can come and are actually strengthened by diversity and by having a lot of different kinds of people in one space, and we don't have to be scared of each other. We can actually thrive with each other. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. Coming back to how tenacious Nevada can be with the ERA, I voted on the Equal Rights Amendment because in Nevada, what we said a few years back was, hey, you know what? We don't subscribe to this notion that Congress has run out the clock on this yet. We're gonna ignore the date on the paper. We're gonna vote for this. So we voted for it. I voted on it. And then so Nevadans voted on it, and we sent it to Congress. Congress said, we're not gonna accept this. It's long overdue. The due date has passed. And we said, now we're gonna sue you. So we did that, and our Attorney General's office helped out, and ultimately we lost. So we did try. Like, that's the tenacity of Nevada, and our Nevada spirit was we tried like heck to make our case for why we needed the Equal Rights Amendment. That being said, can you imagine that even in a modern day of age, we had people vote against it? We had people vote against in this modern day of age. And I was like, oh, well, that's on you. I'm voting for the ERA. I'm voting for it twice. So going to the next part about abortion rights, absolutely we need to codify, or we need to absolutely codify within national law the right to an abortion ban. I actually did serve many years ago on the board of Planned Parenthood. It was then Planned Parenthood Marmonte, and I remember a book I read just going into that position, and it was about the lives of women before birth control was easily accessible. It was about all the hard decisions that they had to make when you were absolutely unable absolutely unable to control your own reproductive.
Thank you, Teresa.
And it was bad. It was really bad.
Okay, I'm really loving the energy around this. Okay, so then, sorry for confusing you, Kathy, that I take partial responsibility for that. Next question is about Epstein and sex trafficking. So, Jeffrey Epstein, it's actually not about the files. Jeffrey Epstein is not a lone wolf. There are many examples of men in power abusing children. Warren Jeffs and Samuel Bateman in the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints. Catholic priests abusing boys. Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood. Abuse of children by powerful people, not just men, is a systematic problem, deeply rooted in the patriarchy. It is not just the offenders that are the problem. There are many examples of victims who reported their crimes only to have no immediate response by law enforcement, which in turn leads to more abuse that goes on and victimizes more and more vulnerable women and children. So my question is, would you advocate for stronger protections for sex trafficking victims, such as the Epstein survivors? And please provide your suggested solution to a deeply rooted issue of sex abuse and sex trafficking. Gami, you're up.
Absolutely, there's no question that I would support identifying the best solutions for these victims. And I think that my framework for addressing this would be, number one, not to politicize the issue, get experts in the field, victims, and produce the most holistic, nonpartisan solution that addresses the human rights, human dignity, and human freedom of everyone involved. Furthermore, we can look at best practices from the European Union to address this very egregious behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Gami. Greg.
First off, I want to observe that the only person in jail over the Epstein files is a woman. So in our society, in our country, we have shamed and criminalized sex work, right? And it has created a bizarre dynamic where it's not a crime to have money for sex, it's a crime to solicit, which means it's okay if a man says to a woman, I'll pay you X to do Y, but it's not okay for a woman to say, if you pay me X, I'll do Y. That is incredibly hypocritical. If you've talked with women in this industry, you know, one of the harshest things someone said to me was, hey, look, I know the way that society is looking at me. It's one thing to pee on me, it's another thing to tell me it's raining. And so this is a hypocritical situation. And it really makes it hard to have a dad-to-daughters talk with my daughters. Because to them, I'm a guy, I'm part of that system. I'm really embarrassed about that. And one thing that's really amazing to me in Nevada, besides its incredible history in mining and hospitality, and innovating in divorce, is Nevada took a different road on sex work and made it legal. I'm not recommending it, but they took the shame out of it in some way. And Nevada is not just a leader in gold and gambling, it's a leader in rethinking the way we treat people that are on the tough end of this industry. Or, in the Epstein files, on the tough end of the patriarchy. And I'm pretty proud of Nevada for that. And I hope to keep learning from Nevada and my daughters. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Kathy.
Will you repeat the question,
I will.
especially the last part?
Okay, just the last little part.
Yeah, just the question.
Okay. Would you advocate for stronger protections for sex trafficking victims such as the Epstein survivors? And please provide your suggested solution to this deeply rooted issue of sex abuse and trafficking.
The Epstein files is everything. It's not everything that's wrong with this country, but it's a big thing that's wrong with this country because it is indicative of this two-tiered system of justice that we have. I talked about before, the Nuremberg laws were to an us versus them and then to demonize one person over another, and that's a distraction so those at the top can do what they want to do. And that is exactly what we see going on now. They want us to be arguing with each other so that we're not looking up at what they have done. So what we need to, I want to commend Rokana and Thomas Massey for their relentless pursuit of trying to bring justice to the survivors, to Julie K. Brown for her relentless journalism work to shed light on this. I remember in 2016 when she was writing about this. Yes, we need to have much more stronger protections for the survivors. What do we do to change this? Accountability. Lock them up. Never let them see daylight again. Ever, ever, ever. I don't care. If you are Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. A grandpa, a grandson. If you did this, goodbye. It's that simple. But what we have is, I wish I could remember because somebody sent me an example today of a friend who is friends with somebody in the Republican Party, and he was convicted of this very thing, and he did 6 months. He should never see the light of day. Our children are not our future. Our children are our now. And they are watching, they are learning, and they deserve to be protected at all cost. That to protect these rights, governments are instituted among men and women.
Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead, Mark.
Are these things illegal or are they not? Right? I believe that there were some crimes that were broken here. Where the hell are the people that should be in jail? There are a lot of organizations that have been caught protecting people. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But frankly, you're right. We need to be going after these people. I don't care who they are. In our party, Al Franken was accused of sexual misconduct, and we drummed him out for it. When your name is listed over 1 million times in the Epstein files, however, conservatives want to make you a king. That doesn't seem right to me. The fact that we aren't seeing any of this evidence, the fact that nobody's saying anything about it, especially from the other side, and every time it gets mentioned, we seem to go to war in another country, seems to be pretty telling to me. The powerful have a different set of rules than the rest of us. There are some changes that need to be made there. In fact, I've got a few of those. If you guys want to come and talk to me later, that's cool, but I don't have time for it now. But we need to be looking at not only institutions, but we also need to be looking at what we can do for the victims. We need to be destigmatizing these things. We don't talk openly about them. It's shameful. It's said in quiet back rooms. My company actually does free work for the women's shelter in Reno, and there are special rules that we have to follow for that because we're guys. They need to make sure that we aren't going to leak any information as to where their location is. But the thing is that how are victims supposed to find them? It's hard. We need to make sure that there are resources for people, for children. These need to be talked about, not whispered about. We need to make sure that as a society, we are there to protect them, but yes, also to prosecute the people who are perpetrators of these things. And it doesn't matter if they're billionaires or the pastor down the street or the scoutmaster. All of them need to be held responsible.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
No one should be above the law. Anyone who has perpetrated these acts must be prosecuted, and those victims deserve full restitution for it. We must strengthen protections for these victims and for folks in this nation going through this. Now, one of the things that I don't know if you know, in 2019 was my first legislative session, and I had the privilege of working on a very important bill here in the state of Nevada. In 2019, the state of Nevada had no floor in which the age you could get married. We found young girls as low of the age of 9 years old getting married to men in their 40s and 50s. We're talking 9-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and I'm not just talking one. I'm talking multiples. And we found them records all the way back for 50 years doing this. In 2019, it was still happening. And I was able to work with my legislator with her legislation and getting co-sponsors and bringing in child marriage advocates to come in and work on this child marriage bill to make sure that children could no longer get married in the state of Nevada. And I believe this is one of those root causes to human trafficking and sex trafficking. It starts with the children. And if we can stop it there, we can do that through legislation, and we did it right here in Nevada. We had to fight like tooth and nail. We were in conference committee to get that bill, and you know that is the last step in the process. And we had to negotiate, and because marriage is a legally binding contract, and we believe that you should be 18 years old to sign into a legally binding contract. We were able to get it to turning 18 within the year, so they could be married at 17, but they had to be turning 18. Was the compromise we had to make with our own party to get it done. Now, this is, at the time, we were the 14th state in the nation to get that passed. 14 out of 50. I believe this is something we can do federally and make sure that it is mandated across the nation.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
Yeah, so we need to release the full Epstein files. We need to subpoena, Pam Bondi and everybody involved in suppressing this. We also need to fully investigate it publicly, and we do need to prosecute. I talked about wanting to be on the Natural Resources Committee. The party leadership kind of picks which committees you go on. I kind of talked about how natural resources is kind of given for this district. I would like to be on the oversight committee so that I could be involved in investigating and prosecuting not just the Epstein files, but Doge. I definitely want to audit them and everything that they've done. But yes, we need to take the Epstein files seriously with how many high-profile people have been mentioned in it across party lines and across multiple different corporations, countries. There's so much that we still have that has still not been shared with the public, and that they are still trying to keep from the public. That we need people to get in there and force their hand. And I forgot to mention this in my last question, but what is the solution to some of this? More women in leadership. So the reason I say that is because there are studies that show when more women are in leadership, it's easier and more common for protections for children and women and equal rights and civil rights protections to be passed. And not only that, but there were many, many reasons why I decided to jump in this race. I was a pre-medical student before, but I learned something that was very interesting. So medicine, predominantly male, right? Well, right now, in the last couple of years, actually, medical students, 55% of them are female. So women are starting to overtake men slowly in medicine. In politics, in the United States, we have about 28% female leadership in the United States. That's at the federal level, state level, governors. That's kind of just the statistics. So we need more women to have leadership roles in the United States so that we can pass this legislation and we can have urgency for this sort of legislation and to protect the women and the women, children, and families. We need to be allocating funding for these programs. We need to be investing in education for sex education to make sure that we have consent is taught in schools, right? And all of those things. And I'm about to run out of time.
Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
So let me just say right out of the bat that the Department of Justice absolutely botched this case, and nothing was more, I think, traumatic than watching the women in real time being re-victimized when we saw that they did sloppy work, that they did, I don't like to use like bad words, I don't think this bad words, but they did piss poor work, and that victims' names were reappearing in files after they were dropped. And to watch that was painful. I think for a lot of us, there's just so much accountability that has to be held for this Department of Justice. Not only that, but that they've made a circus and that they've highly politicized this. And so instead of having legitimate conversation about accountability, a legitimate conversation about justice, we saw Pam Bondi yelling at people talking about the Dow, right? And so one thing that we know we want to do is that we take these conversations seriously and we don't put in any way the threat of diminishing women again and in this way. Accountability is important, and accountability is what I know. So while I served in the legislature, there were times where we would have very powerful people engage in bad actions. One, I brought a bill in order to ensure that local governments couldn't serve as who were serving kind of as the employers within a system, didn't have to pay for electeds' bad behaviors. You'll remember we had a rural sheriff that had a couple of different sexual harassment charges, and about the county had to pay for the first two, right? So they settled on those lawsuits, and they paid. He didn't. I said, my law said that if you are the one engaging in that bad behavior, you have to pay it out of your own pocket. Can't come from your county, can't come from your campaign funds, can't come from legal defense fund. You have to pay for your own bad behavior. Another accountability measure I had was in the legislature when we were experiencing, we've got a clean house, we've got some Me Too people we have to address, was standing up independent process in order for people to feel safe in that building, for women to feel safe in that building, and to be able to make a call when they were feeling like they were being harassed. In terms of victims. That
one scared even me for some reason. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, well, thank you, Teresa. That was the last answer to the last question on this road tour. No one's counting, not me. With that, we get to do closing statements. Our candidates know the drill. Please tell us about yourself and why you think you're the best person to get the Democratic nomination and turn this district blue.
Friends, my grandfather was a bracero brought to this country during World War II to help with the war effort. My mother also worked the fields. It was in that environment that I was born. And back when social mobility was a thing, my parents, through hard work, they became first-time homeowners, U.S. citizens in '86, shortly thereafter, small business owners. I was the first to graduate from high school and the first to attend college. 9/11 happened, and I asked myself, why in the world are we being attacked? Who is attacking us? And why are we going to war? In pursuit of those questions, I declared my international relations major. That was my patriotic response to be a career diplomat, public servant, and advocate for American ideals around the world. Unfortunately, because of economic inequality, I dropped out, became homeless. During the Great Recession, I lost my job and became entangled in the criminal justice system. But like many of you and Rocky, I bounced back up, earned my degrees, my master's from UNR. And in the last decade, I've been an activist, campaign manager, and I have seen from the data and lived experience in talking to folks for the last decade that our affordability and high cost challenges are universal. This is why my platform is about universal economic policies from cradle to grave. Alaska, being conservative Republican, has had a universal basic income for the last 50 years. We can have that and make it better here as well. That is the path to victory.
Thank you, Gami. Greg.
I've had a lot of different career periods in my life, from nursery school teacher to Outward Bound and National Outdoor Leadership School instructor. I've done my time with the Federal Reserve. That was my public sector time. My most humbling time was working as a bicycle messenger. This is after I'd done some corporate gigs, and, you know, talk about the bottom, the totem pole, you know, the guys with the tattoos and the nose rings. It's very humbling. The pay is terrible, super risky, but my gosh, when those folks have a good day and they make a middle-class wage and feel like they have a seat at the table, it's an awesome feeling. We had a different way of doing it, which was bottom up. They decided what they would do, not top down. That concept was the concept that we took and did a few other democratizing efforts. Twitter, Square, the democratization of who could publish, who could take a payment. And ever since that time, I've been amazed that this world doesn't have to be top down from governments or corporations, but can be bottom up. It is my motivating force in everything I do in work, in politics, and everything in between. When I came to Nevada, it was pretty depressing, the prospect to flip this state. Nobody in 2024 from the Democratic Party was willing to step up. Didn't feel that much different than being a bike messenger again. It was a tough race, but we got Mark Amodei down to 55%. This time around, I got all these great company. It's not lonely anymore. The Democratic Party is energized. There's new blood. People like Tallarico and Pete Buttigieg appearing on Fox News, going into tough places, like I was in Dayton 2 days ago. This audience is friendly. I look forward to the unfriendly audiences and to having us win this election. I think I can make a big difference. I need your vote. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Greg. Kathy.
I am so sad to see this end, even though it's making me drive 800 miles
We're going to miss
all
you,
these
Kathy.
weekends. But look, this has just been amazing. You guys have been amazing. It's so heartwarming to see everybody here. I got in this race over a year ago when nobody else was in, and look, I'm a history teacher. I'm a history, government, and economics. I'm not a politician. I got in this race because I saw what was happening to my country. I was seeing history repeat. I have kids. I have grandkids. I have a great-granddaughter. They deserve better. We deserve to go out better. And that's the only reason I got in this race, is because I know from teaching history that this is an all-hands-on-deck moment. And you have your perpetrators, you have your victims, you have your bystanders, and you have your resistors. I am a resistor. I am doing this for my kids. Now, on this tour, sometimes I nailed the answers, sometimes I struggled with my words. This is a job interview. I hope you saw my heart. I'm doing this because I care about us. I care about our Constitution. I want to return to separation of powers, checks and balances, and the rule of law. Now, I have been on city council before. My former student became a mayor. Now, I'm not from Nevada, but I am a Nevada mom. Okay? For 26 years, I have raised my family in the rurals, and I have taught the young rural students. When I was on city council, I took on the Republican incumbent casino exec. They said I couldn't beat him, and I did. Then I diversified my economy. We built a fire station, a downtown project. We brought in 5 new businesses, and I secured funding from 2 of those businesses to go to my kids, our schools. And I was really, really proud of that. I stepped down from city council after my term was up because my passion is teaching our kids. But I'm afraid if we don't flip this seat, if we don't win this race, I won't have a classroom left to teach in, because authoritarianism has come for us, and we need to stop it. Vote for Kathy Durham.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark.
Hey guys, one more time. So I got bored of talking about myself midway through this, so I'm always a bit of the wild card here. Former archaeologist, current small business owner, but I like to do audience participation. So everybody get your hands ready. We're going to be doing a little bit of clapping. So who in this room feels like the billionaires are getting too much of a free ride while the rest of us are paying for it? I need one clap for that one. Okay. How many in here feel like the environment's taken too much of a backseat? I want 2 claps for that one. Okay. How many people feel like paychecks are not going far enough while the cost of living keeps going up? I want 3. I was feeling pretty good. All right. Well, last one. Who feels like America should look different 20 years, 50 years from now? We should be building something that's better for all of us. I want 4 claps for that. Well, that's pretty good. That felt pretty awesome, pretty unifying, right? You know, I could do the same thing in a room full of Republicans and get the same number of claps. And I've done it. So the thing is that whoever we choose to represent us is not only going to have to be able to walk into a room full of strangers and get them all working together, they're also going to have to convince everybody that they could do the same thing in a room full of Republicans and they could get the rest of the party to get behind their back. And I just did it in 30 seconds. Now look, that was a bit of P.T. Barnum. I'm sorry, but here's the thing. A good politician needs to have a little bit of P.T. Barnum behind him. When I got into this race, I got in just about 4 days before Mark Amadei dropped out. So I can only assume that he saw that I was coming in, and he got out. You're all welcome. Thank you. But it's not enough. I wanted to get into spaces where I could change the narrative. I've seen that happen in real time. I want to be able to use common language to bridge some divides. And anyone who's going to be able to represent us is going to have to peel away support from Republicans, ones that are unfortunately a little too used to voting red, no matter who. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Fonken. I was raised on a rural horse farm in Arkansas, son of 2 letter carriers that were union members, obviously, federal union. And I was first generation in my family to go to college, but I had to work my way through college. And through that, worked 6 years in civil engineering and actually, in urban planning and development, working in front of a planning commission and actually actually doing environmental impact studies for the projects, working on LEED certified buildings. Moved on into hospitality management for a decade where I started as a dishwasher, worked my way up to a trained chef, and became a general manager of fine dining restaurants. Moved out to Reno in 2016, got involved in politics for the first time in my life, and I fell in love with Nevada, and I also had the light bulb go off and say, this is a way I can help folks. And so I stayed involved. I got right into issue advocacy. I've worked three legislative sessions, working in constituent services and helping my legislator pass legislation. I've worked 3 presidential elections, and I've worked in multitudes of different elections in between. And in my last job that I left to come run for office, I was the National Field Director for Blue Wave America, organizing red rural districts across this nation and winning. And that is because folks are pissed off about what's going on with this administration. They're upset and they're frustrated and they want to see something change, so they're voting for something different. And that is why I brought that same program to this campaign right here in this rural red district. And those are through having common ground conversations, listening through the frustrations to find pathways to solutions with folks. This is how we make a difference in our communities, and this is why I'm running for Congress, because I saw our public lands under threat. I saw our health care continue to be just under threat constantly, and I said, let's go. I want to take Mark Amadei head on, and all those MAGA Republicans, they deserve a fight, and they need a fighter in Congress like me. Matthew Fonken, running for Congressional District 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
So, my name is Morgan Wadsworth, and I am a 6th generation Nevadan. I was born right here in northern Nevada in Reno. spent every summer down on the ranch in Lincoln County, but we do have some in Nye County and in Elko County. And I was raised by people who were conservative or apolitical and were not even registered to vote and had never voted in their life. I wasn't raised around anyone who is progressive or Democrat or anything like that. But when I turned 18, I registered blue. And I've been voting blue my whole adult life. So, and I'm sure as many of you have noticed, I am the youngest candidate up here. I am 27 years old. That is not a bad thing. That is a good thing because that gets attention and that energizes people. And we are not going to flip this district if we do not offer something that is new and energizing. We have done over and over and over again in this district the same urban, institutionalized, experienced Democrat, and they lose because in the rules they don't really care about that. They care about, are you from there? Do you know their issues? Do you go out and listen to them? In fact, it's almost a negative to be super involved in the democratic institutions in the urban centers in Northern Nevada. We are going to lose those voters. We are not going to be able to peel them away if we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I also want to say, you won't win anything if you don't take risks. By definition, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you can't win. You have to take a risk to win. So I'm asking all of you to take a risk and to vote for Morgan Wadsworth for CD2. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Morgan. Teresa.
I'm going to continue my theme of sneaking in one more response to the last question. Because I'm really proud of the fact that I got to support the Bill of Rights for the victims of sexual assault, and then also got $3 million appropriated to address the backlog of rape kits, sexual assault kits that were existing in the state. Some of those kits that women had filed and given to police departments were sitting in dusty boxes for over 20 years. And we got that righted, and we got that fixed within 2 years. So I've been living and working in this community for a long time, and I've been helping out with Democratic candidates for a long time. I actually knocked doors for my first Democratic candidate when I was 17, before I could even vote. I'm a professional social worker, and I've worked all throughout the 5 different counties in Northern Nevada. I've spent time with Nevadans when they were at their most vulnerable, when they were very ill, when families were struggling and they didn't know what to do. I also, in working in foster care, got to spend time with kids who had special needs, in which we thought, you know, finding an adoptive family to meet all of these different needs are going to be very hard. But I saw the best in Nevada when families would step forward, when CASAs would come to advocate for them, when people would do toy drives for them at Christmas. There is a resilient, strong Nevada that I know and I believe in. I'm kind of an optimist, so I want to believe the best in people and what we can do. But the ability to create change and make change is what I've been doing for a long time. I know some people want to call that establishment. I've just been around for a long time, listening intently to people's needs and then trying to meet those needs. It's what I've done as a legislator. It's what I did as a social worker. It's what I want to do as your congressperson. I was in Fallon last Saturday, and a farmer showed me $70,000 of crops gone to waste, vegetables in the field. Why? Because Elon Musk and Doge took away the grant program that funded the Tribal Assistance Food Program and the food bank to buy fresh fruits and vegetables from farmers. I have hundreds of examples of that around every community in Nevada where this administration has taken from us and taken from us. We're going to go and explain community by community what's been taken and how we're going to get it back. That's how I intend to win this district. That's why I want to be your candidate.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, everyone, stay comfortable. One little thing. Chair Hardy reminded me that there was someone that entered the room after we got started who is running for office locally, so I want to give her the 1-minute opportunity to introduce herself like we did at the beginning.
I apologize. I run on brown time. Just kidding. My name is Maita Sanchez. I am running for Carson City Board of Supervisors for District 3 or Ward 3 here in Carson City. My background, I'm currently a small business owner. I own a small boutique consulting firm. I have about 10 years experience working in state government through the executive branch. I worked under 3 different government administrations, Sandoval, Lombardo, and Sisolak. What I've seen from the policy side and the political side is that sometimes things don't jive, and we need to have someone in local government that's able to translate and influence decisions that are impacting all of us on the day-to-day basis. I'm running today. I went to Empire Elementary School. I smelled fresh clothes on a little boy who was giving me a presentation on flood mitigation. And that's why I'm running, because I want to make sure that those kids can see themselves in positions like this, in positions of leadership. I think that's really important. So, Mayita Sanchez for CarsonCity.com, FOR, Sanchez for CarsonCity.com. I would appreciate your support. So thank you.
Thank you, Maida. Okay, I've got a lot of folks to thank. This is really the moment I've been waiting for. This has really been a labor. I'm gonna cry. This has really been a labor of love for a lot of us. I kind of came up with this kookball idea late last year. I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a primary. Wouldn't it be fun to take our candidates to rural Nevada? Because I thought that was our, part of our purpose is the RNDC. And then I went public with this concept at the December RNDC SEC meeting in December in Reno, and I called them my original four. At the time, we had Matthew Funkin, Morgan Wadsworth, Kathy Durham, and Josh Abear. And I was really excited to do this, and I had the support of my board. And one of my board members is here, and I did not thank her, Mary Sonata. Mary's our treasurer, and just a fantastic person. And she also brought a lot of wisdom and knowledge to this background process, which I'll get to in a minute. But there's no way we could have pulled this off without a fabulous team. Again, Chair Doan and Marie in the back, and Mary, and all of our candidates. They all jumped on board. And I will tell you, in the middle of March, my birthday's Ides of March 15th, same birthday as RBG. The filing deadline was the 13th, and I was like watching more and more candidates jump into the race, and I was having a little nervous breakdown. I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, what, how? But somehow we did it, and I'm proud of all of us, thankful for my candidates. And I also want to thank my husband, Bob, who drove me around rural Nevada. He's not here now. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank the spouses and partners of all the candidates and all the folks that supported this, because none of us could do this without supportive people in our lives to back us up when we have kookball ideas. And also, of course, again, my team. So with that being said, before I declare this road tour over, so you can see I'm not ready. I'm not ready to let it go. It's been really fun. Marie, part of her purpose in this whole thing is something she brought is she loves her data. So she's got surveys. They're double-sided. If you could fill them out and hopefully say great things about us. And again, thank you to all the candidates for participating in this. Obviously, this wouldn't have worked without you. And I hope you found it valuable and y'all learned from it. And